Get ready for something a little different. I'm Bill Stevens along with Steve Matchett, and we are in an undisclosed location. We can't tell you where we are. It's their secret headquarters for the Apex collection. And I don't think you've ever seen the kind of collection we're about to show you. What do you think?
Well, first impressions, Bill. Working with you guys at Mecum, I've become used to seeing phenomenal collections of cars, but typically they are American muscle collections, or they are European exotic collections. They are collections of Ferrari or Lamborghini or race cars. But here we see everything's represented, but beyond that, the condition of the machines is beyond phenomenal. I love it.
Yeah, it's truly a smorgasbord. 33 vehicles all together coming to Dana Mecum's original Spring Classic in Indianapolis in May. So why are we just standing here? We have a lot to do, don't we?
Let's get to it.
Let's get to work. Well, Steve, any muscle car enthusiast will recognize this car, a 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona. Of course, the thing that really stands out about this car is the aerodynamics. This is an automobile that was specifically built to dominate on NASCAR superspeedways.
In all my years in Formula One and working around race cars, Bill, aerodynamics is always king in terms of design, and everything played second fiddle to that. And when I look around this car, I can see that there are a lot of sophisticated, for the time, aerodynamics at play. I've already looked under these ducts and I know that they're functional. I'm guessed for venting air away from the front fenders, and the rear wing is aero profiled, and I'm sure it is producing downforce.
Well, the outrageous front end also is an indication of how important aero was to Dodge. They brought in some of their aerospace engineers to work on this project. The following year, the Superbird came in from Plymouth, and at the end of 1970, NASCAR said, okay, if you want to keep the aero, fine, but you got to reduce your engine size to 305 cubic inches, so no more 426 Hemis. This car has a 440 Magnum. It's been breathed on a little bit, but all the original parts go with the car to the next owner. So in 1969, this was one of the winged warriors.
Now, 49 plus years later, Dodge made headlines again with a car that, when I look at it, doesn't seem to be very aero streamlined at all. Tell me about that car.
Yeah, you must be talking about the 2018 Dodge Demon. Yeah, that rocked the world. As much as 840 horsepower, a car that could do 9-second quarter miles out of the showroom and even carry the front wheels. And not many of them were made, 3,000 for the United States, and they will be a blue chip collectible for a long time. And might I say that the condition of these two Dodges, impeccable. The Apex collection includes a 1974 Jaguar XKE Roadster. Stephen, I'm going to defer to you on this.
Well, in one form or another, Bill, I've been around automotive engineering for over 40 years, but the chap that gave me my first break as an apprentice mechanic in England was a Coventry-trained Jaguar apprentice, and he was a big fan of this car, but he always referred to it simply as the E-Type.
Exactly, and this one is stunning. It's got the 5.3-liter V12, 272 horsepower, manual transmission, we love to see that, striking black paint, red interior, chrome wire wheels, and 7,700 miles. You're in good company. Enzo Ferrari had something to say about these cars, didn't he?
True or not, verified or not, the story is that Enzo took one look at the E-Type and said, that is the most beautiful sports car I've ever seen.
By the way, it's Jaguar, not Jaguar.
Mm-hmm.
I digress. I can understand why the Apex collection is in an undisclosed location. This is like the Fort Knox of big block Chevelle convertibles, like this 1970 396 375 horse L78 Chevelle convertible. And by the way, all the ones we're about to see have 4 speeds and cowl induction hoods. By the way, you had a 396 Camaro. What was that like?
It was incredibly brutishly powerful. But I'm left with the thought, Bill, that if all Chevelles are created equal in terms of their power plant, some Chevelles are created more equal than others. Tell me what's going on.
This is more equal. 396 not big enough? How about a 454? This is the LS5, 360 horsepower. Again, 4-speed, and how about that blue and blue color scheme?
It's beautiful.
Oh, this is the big tuna right here. This is the LS6, the convertible, 4-speed, also 450 horsepower in there with that 454. And look at the gold with the black paint. It is striking. Yep, Fort Knox indeed, right here.
The next offering from the Apex collection is this truly exquisite car manufactured in the stables of Maranello, the Spider version of the 488. And the car is absolutely loaded with Formula One electronic understandings on the steering wheel and on the transmission, but only a V8 in the back of the car, although it does use twin turbos. Very lightweight materials using those turbochargers so that the engine and the transmission doesn't suffer from that horrific condition of turbo lag. From Ferrari, I'm going to pass you over to my colleague Bill, who is standing alongside another great Italian car, a Lamborghini.
Steve, the 1968 Lamborghini 400 GT Islero, one of my favorite Lamborghinis. This was the next in line after the 350 GT and the 400 GT. This is the Islero. This is a 2+2 automobile. Now, a lot of people know that Ferruccio Lamborghini and Enzo Ferrari, they weren't the best of friends, a lot of rivalry there. And Lamborghini wanted to build the world's best front-engine V12 Grand Touring car, and this is the car that Ferrari really had some fears about. 5-speed transmission behind that 3.9-liter V12 with 320 horsepower, a true 150-mile-an-hour GT car. Now, before Lamborghini really went off the rails with the Countach and the Diablo and the Murcielago, this was the Lamborghini that Lamborghini lovers wanted to drive.
Well, here at the Apex collection, Bill and I are now standing between two highly significant 1969 first-gen Camaros. And this fella over here is highly unusual because it has a 427 cubic inch engine in it. Very unusual. The only reason it exists is because of the central office production order process, the Copo process, where a dealer had to go straight to Chevy to have that done. I love it, Bill, but what do you think about it?
Oh, a lot of love for this car,
Yeah.
no question, Steve. This one has black on the outside, black on the inside, 4-speed car. You mentioned the 427, the L72, 425 horsepower engine, and look at the poverty caps at all four corners, that little red pinstripe along the belt line. A lot of these went to drag racers. They were really bad to the bone. And then Don Yenko, he took that and made this. Now, in 1969, because Chevy was already putting the 427 in the Camaro in the Copo program, Don Yenko took delivery of these Camaros with the 427 already in them. Prior to that, in 67 and 68, he had to put the engines in them. This one in the beautiful blue, got the torque thrust mag wheels at all four corners. It's a 4-speed car, and you're looking at two cars that literally are the gold standard for Camaros and almost priceless. We've got a rare European exotic in the Apex collection, this 1968 Detomaso Mangusta. Only 401 of these were built. And there's something about the configuration of this car that you're fascinated by.
Well, I love the Italian styling. But one of the guiding principles of race car technology is, if at all possible, take the mass of the engine from the front and move it towards the midline of the car, because that will help with weight distribution. Is that the case? Tell me about the engine and what happened.
Yeah, this was one of the first mid-engine Italian exotics. 302 Ford V8, 230 horse, and so it's not an overly powerful car, but going back to that whole mid-engine configuration didn't work out too well with this car. The weight distribution way out of whack, 44% up front, 56% in the back. This car was a real handful to drive.
Makes the car very light at the front. Tell me something about that name, Mangusta. I love it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, Mangusta, that translates to mongoose, and Detomaso and Shelby, Carroll Shelby, were going to put together a Can-Am program. It crashed and burned, so in retaliation, Detomaso decided to name this car the Mongoose, the Cobra Killer. But Carroll Shelby had the last laugh, and we're about to find out why.
And Bill, the Mangusta story has been confined to the annals of history, but the Shelby story, that continues on, and we're surrounded by three incredible examples. Tell me more.
Well, the Mangusta went out of production in 1971. Not long thereafter, people started building Cobra replicas because the value of original Cobras, they were getting out of reach. These are three different examples of Cobra reproductions. That one over there, that's a high-tech built aluminum-bodied 427 competition car. That is patterned after one of the most famous 427 Cobras in history, CSX 3002, the only 427 comp car that was raced by the Shelby team itself. This is a 50th anniversary continuation Cobra. Only 50 of these were built. Aluminum body, as you can see. It's got a Shelby Source 427 with Weber carburetors. And these automobiles right here, the CSX 4000, as close to an original Cobra as you can get without paying that kind of money. That's also a CSX 4000 car. That one has a fiberglass body, but it's got the 427 big block, and both cars upgraded with 5-speed manual transmissions, a little bit easier to the driver when they're on the highway. But even though the Mangusta a footnote in history, the Shelby name, it's as bright as ever. Well, this 1966 Shelby GT350 is kind of chapter 2 of the GT350 story, a car that's a lot different than the 1965, and you remember those cars. They were raw customers.
Well, my understanding of the 65 car, Bill, it was very much a race car that was sold to the road-going customers. And that reminds me of Ferrari's story to an extent, and how their customers complained that Ferrari's race cars for the road were so uncomfortable. A lot of refinements put onto the 66 car. It's a beautiful result of all of that. Tell me about the refinements.
Yeah, now the 1965 car had a very tough suspension, Coney shocks. The 66, they went to Ford Motor Company shocks, which gave it a little bit more of a compliant ride. Also, although the powertrain is the same, 306 horsepower, 289, this car with a 4-speed, an automatic was available in 1966. This car also has out-the-back exhaust, no more side exhaust. They could put fumes into the cabin, and so could the rear suspension overriders as well. This car, Concours restoration, sapphire blue, Wimbledon white stripes, 10-spoke mags. Where can you go wrong?
I have to say, for me, I think with the 66 car, Ford absolutely hit the nail on the head. It's an exquisite piece of artwork.
Well, the Apex collection has 33 cars, a smorgasbord of high-end vehicles, but we didn't have enough time to show you the whole thing. You got the party platter version, and you probably have a pithy comment to end with.
About pithy, but I will say I've been beyond impressed with the variety of cars, not just European exotica, not just American classics, but a bit of everything. But the quality of the restoration is beyond special to me. I love it.
Yeah, I agree. Now, if you'd like to see the whole collection, you can go to Mecum.com, see the consignments, and also the story behind a lot of these cars. And don't forget to come to the auction. That's May 12th through the 20th, Dana Mecum's original Spring Classic at the Indiana State Fairgrounds, or...
Well, you can watch it online, of course, or watch the whole auction unfold on Motor Trend TV.
You are so pithy.